Welcome to Modern Word Ministries. I'm Deacon Tom Moore, and on behalf of my wife Kim and myself, we want to welcome you. And just to let you know that whether you're here in person or you're tuning in on social media, we appreciate that you have chosen to spend a little bit of your day with us. Before we get to this week's message, just a couple of quick things I'd like to cover. You know, we have an amazing website, and everything you want to do with us and we want to do with you can be found there. You can get on our prayer list on the website. You can do your tithes and offerings over the website, or you can communicate with us. I love feedback. My wife loves feedback. Tell us how we're doing. Tell us what you need. Tell us what you're looking for in your church, because this is your church. I shepherd this church, but it's your church. So before we start with the message, just a couple of things. First, if you're in need of prayer, or if you know someone who's in need of prayer, go to our website at modernwordministries.org and put in a prayer request. It's very simple to follow. We will get back to you within 48 hours. It's all anonymous, it's confidential, and we will get back to you. I promise you that. We will put you on the prayer list, and we will pray for you every single day, because that's what we do, because we're a praying church. Secondly, tithes and offering. You know, an important part of being a Christian is giving your tithes and offerings to the Lord. And there are a number of scriptures that tell us why that is so important. But I'm here to tell you, we have made this so easy, so simple. Just go to our website and click on the tab that says support this ministry. It'll take you from there. It's so easy, even I could do it. So again, thanks for coming out today. And now here's this week's message. Good morning. I'm Deacon T, and I'll be bringing you the Word of God today. Welcome to Modern Word Ministries. The message this week is entitled The Power of the Father. And you might immediately think I'm talking about God the Father, and in many references I am, but that's not really the true intent. I wanted to talk about the power of fathers in our lives, the power of fathers in the history of mankind, and the power of fathers to change, to mold, to shape the course of history. You know, things have changed so much in the last, I don't know, 20, 25 years, 30 years, I don't know. In the last short little while. I remember where parents could spank or whip on their kids pretty darn hard, and that was just parental prerogative, and in fact, it was good parenting. Today, if your child goes to school and has a bruise on his arm where his mother grabbed him and jerked him out of the refrigerator, they're going to call family services and the police, and it's going to turn into a big to-do. And quite frankly, in my opinion, it's a lot of what's wrong with our kids today. But what I want to talk about first started in the Bible years and years and years and years ago in the Old Testament. And it was about the blessing of the Father. And in many, many scriptures, and I have a few today that I'm going to read to you, and I want you to go check them out. But I really just want to have a conversation with you more than just sit here and read scriptures. But the blessing of the Father, that way it was a formal process where the Father actually put his hands on his eldest son and said, I'm blessing you, I'm giving you this inheritance, here's what your future is about, and actually gave him a blessing for the future. Something like, you know, your light is going to shine very brightly. And I have an example that if we have time, I'll read later. It was a big deal. It was a formal deal. even if it happened in an informal structure, like in a tent in the middle of the desert, it was still a big, big deal. And what happened as a result of this blessing is that everybody else then knew who the special heir was, who was taking over the land, who was going to run the family, who was going to be in charge of that tribe, so forth and so on. So it was, more than just, I want you to do well, son. It was a whole lot more than that. And within society, it was really how people knew who was who and what was what, because they knew who got the blessing. As time moved on, that formal structure, that like laying on of the hands and what have you, has really dissipated, and it's really been watered down. And today, I don't know what I could compare it to. Maybe it's because we write a will, and in the will it says, I give this one of my children this, and I give somebody else something else, and maybe it's like that. But I think one of the really, really important things about the blessing from the old days that is missing or completely gone today, that I think is absolutely critical, is the formality of the father taking his son by the hands, by the shoulder, however he did it, and putting his hands on this man and saying, son, I give you the following. You are my main heir. You are the person who's going to carry on our family name, our family heritage, our family trade, our family traditions. You are responsible. It doesn't come with just a blessing. Every blessing comes with responsibility. You are responsible for looking out for your brothers, your sisters, your mother when I am gone. I'm going to be looking down from heaven on you to see that you are carrying on my legacy in the appropriate way. Any of us who had a father in our life, or even if we didn't, know that we wanted our dad's blessing. And when we didn't get our dad's blessing, we would try extra, extra hard. I think most of us can relate to saying, watch me, Dad, watch me, Dad, watch me, Dad. I'm going to go on the swings, Dad. Watch me, I can swim all the way across the pool, Dad. Watch me, I can go to the bottom, Dad. Watch me, Dad, I can hit a home run, Dad. Watch me, Dad, watch me, Dad, watch me, Dad. Watch me, Dad. In the last 40 years, things have changed within the family. I read yesterday that 50%, it's half, percent of the households in America do not have a male figure, a consistent male figure present in the hierarchy of the family. So they may have men in and out, but they don't have a live-in permanent male figure, and or they don't have like a divorce situation, but the dad sees them every weekend and gets them on the holidays and is actively involved in their upbringing. 50%. I was literally blown away by that. That means that 50% of the children in America don't have a relationship with their father or the adult male father figure who replaced him. It was very powerful for me to read that, because it also includes a situation that's not in that 50%, wherein there are some fathers still in the picture, still living with the mother, still involved in the children's life, but the influences are all negative. The father is addicted to drugs or alcohol. The father is abusive to the mother or abusive to the children. That's verbally, physically, sexually, emotionally, whatever, abusive. So the father is in the family unit, setting bad examples for his children. I can only share the experiences I've had. You can only share the experiences you had. I was and it's why it makes this message for me. Let me back up. It's why it makes this message for me so powerful and so profound. I grew up in a household where my father was there every day. And I have to give him credit because he did provide for his children. I have 9 siblings, so there were 10 children plus my mother. And I give my father a lot of credit for providing for his family. I can't imagine how hard that job must have been to provide for 10 kids and a wife. The pressure must have been incredible. However, I never got along with my father. And from my earliest memories, not what I see in cards, or pictures rather, which is what drove me to do this message. One of my siblings sent me a text and had included some pictures of me as like a 1-year-old, 2-year-old in various costumes and dressed up like a football player and all this stuff, and with my little sister. And my father was there with my grandfather, and they were playing with me, evidently with this football, and I was laughing, and it appeared I was having a good time. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember any of those times. My earliest recollections of my father are him beating me unmercifully, of him closing his fist and punching me in the stomach, or punching me in the chest, or punching me in the face. Those are my memories of him. I spent most all my life trying to get the father blessing that I was talking about earlier. That never came. And I could never understand why. As most of you know, I've been an athletic guy all my life. I used to want my father to come to games and do things, and of course, he never did those things. He was in the picture, but he was a significant negative influence in the picture, and he was particularly horrible to my mother, and as I look back, to me. And I could never understand why my father seemed to dislike me so much. His constant rhetoric to me was negative messages like, it's a good thing you're good with your hands because you're an idiot and you're never going to amount to anything. That was sort of the gist of the parental messages I got from him. And I can never figure out, why does this guy have such a bee under his rear end that he's on me like this? I had other brothers and sisters, and he would get on them too, but it just wasn't the same. Not even close. And he never touched the girls in our family. And since right after me was my sister, there was a break there for a year. But it was odd. I never had my father tell me he loved me. Let's say that again. I never had my father say he loved me. I never remember it. So, rolling forward, I remember distinctly the day he told me he loved me. It was in June of 1978, and it was on my wedding day. We came back to the house after the church service, and I ran into him in the kitchen, and he said, "You know I love you." And I was taken back. And I was so just overwhelmed by what he had said that I literally went into the bathroom that was right off the kitchen and vomited uncontrollably. That was the first time. And the last time that he ever spoke those words. I remember the second time he told me he loved me. Before he passed away, he wrote on a scribbly piece of paper. He couldn't speak because he had had cancer surgery in his throat. And he wrote on a scribbly piece of paper, "You know, all those times I was kicking your ass, it was just because I wanted you to do better because I loved you." That was it. When I was 50 years old, I found out through happenstance why my father disliked me so much. My father was a guy who broke my nose, who broke my orbit of my eye, literally beat me unmercifully. And when I was 50 years old, I found out that when my mother and father were dating, my mother got pregnant, and my father was forced to marry my mother, someone he didn't want to be with, someone he didn't love, but society seemed to think that was the better path. And so, he looked at me and he thought I was the outcome of his misfortune because he didn't love this woman and didn't want to be with her. And he was Catholic, so he doesn't practice birth control. So the next thing you know, he has 10 kids. But at the beginning of all that horror story, it was just me. I was the guy who did that. I tell you all that, not to garner some sort of sympathy or empathy, but to lead in to part 2 of the story, which gets back to the power of the Father. My paternal grandfather knew things weren't working out with my father. And on this given day, my father threw me out the front door of the house and punched on me till I was unconscious. And when I woke up, I got on my bicycle and I rode 32 miles. I was 14. I rode 32 miles to my grandfather's house. And he had this big old farmhouse with this farm. If you're old enough, you remember the show Green Acres. It was just like that. And I said, I can't stay there anymore. I can't let this guy beat on me anymore. I got to get out. And if I can't stay with you, I appreciate that. But what I'm not doing is going back to him. Long story short, I ended up staying with my grandparents and never lived at my parents' home again. And interestingly, never got beat by my father again. Never. My grandfather knew I was a hurting, struggling, abused kid. And he hugged me and kissed me and put his hands on me and showed me how to do things and showed me love and he showed me understanding and he showed me compassion and he helped me and he was fun to me and I knew he loved me. He didn't walk around every day going, love you, love you, love you. But he would just say it in passing. When I was little, he called me Speed. He said, hey, Speedy, love you. I was 15, 16, 18. He didn't drive. He had a bad eye, so he couldn't drive. And I got an early driving permit at 15 so that I could drive him to work because he lived way out in the country. And I would drive him. He'd jump out of the car and he'd say, Speedy, love you, buddy. And it changed the entire course of my life. It changed everything. So that little story is why, and I looked at these pictures that my brother sent me the other day, and it's what really triggered me doing this message. We are called on as men of God, by the way, or single women who are raising children, who have to be fathers too. We are called on to build for our children models that they can follow, things that good parents are supposed to do and that good fathers are supposed to set the role model for. If you don't know this, I'm about to tell you, children learn from us. Men, boys learn how to treat their women from how their father treats their mother. Note to self, men. Women, girls, learn what expectations to set for how they will be treated by men based on how they observe their father treating them and their mother. So what I'm saying is, if boys observe a not so good dad, they're going to be a not so good husband and dad themselves. If girls observe dads or moms who have different boyfriends every week, let the dude sleep over, anybody around can sleep in there with mom, blah, 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 blah. Shocking. When these girls get older, they have terrible time getting solid commitments. They've got boyfriend. They got trouble. And they learned it from us guys or women. We set the tone for our children. I think you love your child. God knows I love my kids. And I tell them that all the time. But there are some things I wrote down here that I want to just talk to you about. Now, I said this was about the father, but in this society where half of the houses, the woman is the father and the mother, and I'm going to talk about the good and the bad of that some other time. And God bless you all who are wearing both hats. God bless you who are wearing both hats. But it is not what you were designed to do. That's part B. I wrote down here, and I've got scriptural basis for this stuff. And I don't want to get too long, and I want to get to all this. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk about these things and where they are in Scripture. And then I'm going to post a list of the Scriptures on Facebook so that you can see it. But these are attributes of a godly father. See, that's what I want to be. A godly father, not a goodly father. I don't want my kids to all have 4 cars each, but don't know right from wrong. You with me? I also want to say this before I move ahead. As in the case of my grandfather, you do not have to be a biological father to anybody to be a great father. And the fact that you are not someone's biological father does not relieve you of the responsibility to be a father to the fatherless and a helpmate to single women or single parented women, even if you don't have a romantic relationship with that woman. That doesn't mean you can't be a steady influence in her life and in her children's life. So here's some attributes of godly fathers. If you want to write these down, it's going to appear on a test. I'm just telling you that. And the test is going to be when you get to the pearly gates. And they say, okay, what kind of father are you? Were you a godly father? So here are the attributes. I just wrote them down. That you demonstrate forgiveness. In other words, when things go wrong, you show, you demonstrate, not what you say, what you do. You demonstrate forgiveness. Think of the prodigal son and how he came back home and what the father did. He ran down the driveway after him. He got him a beautiful robe. And listen to this, he gave him a ring and some sandals. People think the ring is jewelry. No, it's not jewelry. It's the family ring. It's the signet. It's what they would use to seal wax with. And that ring said, I am this man's son. We need to provide correction. In other words, we need to, keep people on the straight and narrow. Being a good dad ain't being everybody's buddy all the time. I'm friendly, but I ain't your friend, kids. I am your elder. I'm your father, your grandfather. I'm setting the rules. I'm enforcing the rules. I'm keeping you on the straight and narrow. Why? Without it, you'll be off into the bushes doing goofy stuff just like I did. We have to impart wisdom. It's a really, really deep thing here. Imparting wisdom. Wisdom is the application of knowledge and understanding. See, I know a lot of people that know everything, and they are very unwise. They don't know how to look at a situation and understand how to use the information correctly. They're smart, but they're very unwise. So one of the attributes of a godly father is he imparts wisdom to his children. He provides for his family. Everybody knows what this means. I'm going to spend 2 seconds on it, but I'm just going to tell you this. There is no excuse on this earth, unless you are totally handicapped and can't do anything. But if you're able-bodied, there is no excuse for you to not provide for your children. Yes, you divorce Shaniqua. You cannot divorce your children. There's no such thing. You owe those children a living. And depending on what the law says, you may owe your ex-wife too. Not my problem. I don't want to hear about it. And if you don't support your family, I refuse to be your friend. You are not a man if you do not support your family. Enough said. You need to be the leader of the family. You need to set the moral, ethical high ground. You need to take ownership of bad situations. A leader takes ownership when things go wrong and steps forward and says, I dropped the ball on that, and here's what I'm doing to make it right. A leader is not perfect, but a leader is transparent. Just because you're the father doesn't mean you're perfect. Just to give you an idea, this will be a small tidbit I'm going to give you about something that I remember my father saying. And if you can imagine this, we're talking 50 plus years ago. I remember it. My father said one time, I can never be wrong. God made me your father, therefore I'm always right. What? I didn't make that up. Lastly, a godly father loves his family more than himself, more than his booze, more than his dope, more than anything else he's into. He loves his family. And his mission in life is to lead them and guide them and protect them and keep them and head them into a better life. To take them, if you will, to the land of milk and honey through his awesome leadership. That's what we're talking about. Do you see a lot of that in American families today? Do you? Where are all the fathers? Where have they gone? What are they doing? Who are these guys that get remarried and just dump their ex-family as if it's an old pair of shoes and they picked up new ones? By the way, I'm just going to put this out there. I'm talking about men, but it could be women. If he did it to you, if he did it to them, he'll do it to you. Repeat that. I stuttered. If he did it to them, he'll do it to you, honey. If he dumped his ex-wife, took off with somebody else, left her with 3 kids, and they're starving, and you're living it up, he's a bad dude. If he did it to her, he'll do it to you. If he did it to those children, he'll do it to your children. Be ready. Be ready. So if those are the attributes of a godly father. What are the roles of a father? What are we supposed to do? Like, what's a job? A job? Number one, we're supposed to be a provider. Now, this has really morphed over the years. Women went into the workplace after the Second World War and never left, thank God, and provide amazing help to all of us through whatever it is their occupation is. Others didn't. They stayed in more traditional roles. Nothing wrong with that. I tell my wife all the time, I couldn't be mommy. Woo! It's too hard a job. Running that house, excuse me, putting up with me, and then when they were small, putting up with our 3 children. No, no, hardest job in the world. We are supposed to be protectors. We are supposed to be protectors. Women, you are not supposed to rely on your eldest son to feel that your family is safe. You're supposed to be relying on your man, on their father. And if he's gone or can't or is incapacitated or passed or whatever, you do the best you can do. But ultimately, when you select a man, if you do, remember they're supposed to be providers and protectors. And I don't mean this in an emotional way. There's no room in this world for weak fathers. That doesn't mean you have to go around whooping everybody and busting heads. I'm not talking about that. But you have to be somebody who other people know that when it comes to your family, your spouse, your children, you don't play. Simple. As a father, we need to be a leader. We need to set the tone. We need to set the pace, the cadence. What goes on in this house? What's acceptable and unacceptable? And by the way, none of this means we're not consulting with our partner or our wife or who. I'm not saying that. But in the end, we're all going to be looking to you, Dad. We need to be teachers. This is so important. I didn't do a great job of this, I think, sometimes in some areas. I was always working, and I said, well, I'm going to provide, and protect. But when I looked at this list, you know, I was gone a lot. It was a trade-off we made. My wife really raised the kids. I wonder if I should have figured out how to back off a little on the work and pick up a little more on the giving male influence in the house. Sometimes I do. Question myself. We need to be a helper to our children, our spouse, our significant other, whoever it is. We need to be a helper. Not somebody who comes in and plops down in the chair and starts screaming orders and wants to be fed and taken care of. Where's my laundry and do this and do that. And, oh, by the way, you got to kiss me today and blah, 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 blah. No. Because we are leaders, we are servants. I've preached this so many times. I know you know this. You cannot be a good leader if you are not a good servant, helper, servant. If you are not serving your spouse, serving your children, serving your family, don't talk to me about how you can be a good leader. You need to be an encourager. Now, this is an area where I think I did do a good job, and this is an area where my father sucked, quite frankly. You're an encourager. Good job. Way to go, Mike. Come on, buddy. I know you can do it, man. Come on. Good God. You were great today, dude. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Way to go, Carly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Oriana. Nice goal. Way to make. Oh, you killed that. Encourager. Don't worry about him. You're going to find yourself a much better boyfriend. And you come over here and let your daddy rub that little head and kiss your forehead and tell you that you're going to be more than okay because you're my girl, because you're daddy's girl. And this guy's loss is going to be a different guy's welcoming gain. Absolutely. Because you're a treasure. Because you're fabulous. Because you defy every law of nature. Because you are just perfect. God made you perfect. I tell my children that all the time. All the time. You're perfect. I believe this is a John Legend song. You're perfect in all your imperfections. God gave you to me perfectly. Absolutely. And the last role of father is to be friendly. Have some fun. Chill out. Spill soda. Let it be okay. Drop that ice cream cone because it melted to the side. Let your kids put weird costumes on you. I tell you, at this point in my life, I don't care anymore. I'll tell. I used to let my daughters make me up, dress me up, put goofy hair things on me. I had no hair. I looked like a complete wacko. And those girls and my granddaughter loved it. It was the bomb for them. Watching movies, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The cartoons and movies I watched, I'm like, I wonder if it did brain damage to me and like killed brain cells. I was talking about it last night, how I would play games with them, intentionally messing up the characters, even though I've seen 1,000 SpongeBob movies, SpongeBob episodes. I'd call him like, oh, look, it's Sponge George. And they would jump up and they would say, Daddy, it's not Sponge George. Oh, my goodness. And then they would talk to each other. I can't believe Dad doesn't even know SpongeBob. You know? I cherish those memories. I cherish those memories. I cherish the thought that my kids thought I couldn't keep SpongeBob straight. And that they thought that was just horrendous. But it's that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean I'm their friend and they can talk to me any kind of way and come around me cursing and all that. No. And the last one, or last one we're going to cover here, is the role where we're supposed to make our children and our spouse feel secure. Now, feeling secure is very, very broad. There's physical security, emotional security, financial security, spiritual security. I know people who have tons of money. Their kids are nervous, not sure things are working out. Parents don't get along, open hostility. It's a very insecure environment. And yet I know other people who have very, very little, and the children have no idea and think it's the most wonderful environment ever. And that's our job to do that. It starts with the daddy, or if dad isn't there, it starts with the mom, dad. And it's just our role. You know, we have to be merciful. We have to be kind. We have to do those things that create a sense of security within our family. You know, it's in Psalms 127, it talks about that men are to be merciful to their children and considerate of their partners and their children. And you think about that and what that says. Merciful, showing mercy. You don't have to. You're the dad. You're the biggest, strongest guy in the house. You typically have more money than anybody else in the house. You typically are louder than anybody in the house. So you typically can wreak the most havoc if you want to. But a merciful dad doesn't take out what happened on his job or what happened with his buddies or his own insecurities. He doesn't take them out on his family. He doesn't. See, we are in a system here. We're in a situation where the system that was set up by God is only being followed 50% of the time. So if we believe that God knows what he's doing and knew what he was doing, I believe he created Adam and Eve, partly, because he knew that Adam needed Eve and Eve needed Adam. Partners. He also knew that they would have children and that there were unique, biologically implanted skills and actions and thoughts that only men have, and the same holds true for women, and that the children blossomed best, or the very best system, was when both males and females were present in the house. How do I know that? I don't know that. I think that. Why do I think that? Because he made it Adam and Eve. He didn't just make Eve and say, here, take care of everything. You had a deadbeat husband, but you never knew him. And you got 2 kids. One of them's crazy and he's going to kill the other one. I mean, Adam and Eve started with as much drama as any of us. They lost a child early, and they lost their child at the hands of their other child. That must have made, like, dinners and holidays kind of rough around their house, don't you think? I start thinking about my house and thinking, whew, I never killed any of my brothers. Dang, it must have been tense in there. They're on the outside. They're not in the Garden of Eden anymore. And the one brother killed the other brother. Whew, I don't know. But what I want to chat with you for just a minute, is why I believe that we have some of the problems we have today in America, in the world, but in America. And it's because of the breakdown of the family, the traditional family. And because, as we said, in half of the households in America, there's no consistent positive male presence. Does that mean that women can't raise children alone? Absolutely not. Don't try to say I said that. I didn't. There are women who are raising children on their own who do a fabulous job. It is excessively hard because they're by themselves. It is also excessively hard because our DNA, as designed by God, was designed to be working in cooperation, Adam and Eve, not just Eve. So in order to raise children, the mom has to be both mom and dad. The mom has to pick up and try to impart wisdom and try to teach skills and try to do things that she herself, other than through observation, and maybe not at all, has no idea what she's doing because she didn't have the DNA for it. That doesn't mean she can't give it her best shot and do a good job. What I'm saying is it is so much harder. Let's look at this just mathematically, how easy this is. If I'm married and have one child, that means there's 24 hours in a day. I think we all agree on that. And there's two parents. That means there's 48 hours of potential parenting, time, working with, hands-on, brushing hair, hugging, bathing, getting ready, teaching, learning, protecting, doing all those things. There's 48 hours every day available to that child. If dad bails out, that means that mom has to cover. I don't care if you're the best mom ever. It's still only 24 hours in a day. So that means you have half the time to do the same job that was being done by you and your spouse prior. That is an arduous, tough, hard job just on the mathematics end, because you got twice as much work to do. But to make it even harder, you're being asked to do things that men were designed to do and women weren't supposed to have to do. We make do. We do with what we got to do. God bless these women who are out there doing and covering and making up for what unfortunately many men have just walked away from. I want to wrap up here today by saying this. And I want to go back to the blessing. The blessing of old was always spoken. It wasn't written down. And it needs to be that way again. A blessing isn't a blessing until I hear my daddy say it. So if somebody says to you, do you tell your children? Well, I'm going to use an example. If someone says to a man, do you know your male children love you? Oh yeah, they love me. Do you tell them you love them? And your answer is, oh, they know. Brother, they don't know.
They don't know. I promise you, when they are older and wiser, not today, they will remember when you tell them you love them way more than when you gave them a new Mustang. I promise you. You see, on this subject matter, my father never gave me a car anyway, but I have personal history in this stuff. The power is in the speaking. The power is looking up in the stands and seeing you in the stands, buddy. And having you come down afterwards and say, Johnny, way to go. Good job, buddy. I don't care if all he did was sit on a bench and he says to you, oh, I didn't even get to play. They're holding you. Don't worry. That's because they didn't need you today. Man, you got it. It is so important. You see, I don't have the answer to this gigantic problem of why we have 50% of the homes without men. And so I'm talking to the people I can talk to. Talk to your children. Support your children. Don't assume they know, because they don't. You see, you remember the things I said, the roles of the father? Protector, provider, teacher, leader. All that stuff takes some time. And I hate to tell you this. I hate to be the guy, the little joker over here who's saying unpopular stuff. But I really believe this. You need to step up. You need to pick up your game. You need to outgrow your ego and become a man. You need to let go of your childish schoolboy thinking and settle your differences with your ex enough such that you can have a positive impact on your kids. Here is a fact. Someone is going to raise your kids. Some male will have impact on your kids. Don't think they won't. It can either be his stupid buddy who doesn't know any more than he does, or it could be one of these dudes on the street who just got out of doing 5 years in Chino, or it could be another loser putting all kinds of bad stuff in your kid's head, in your son's head. It could be another guy showing your daughter no other way but getting slapped around. My male friends, we have to do something. Get involved in Big Brothers. Get involved in helping out somebody who doesn't have a daddy for whatever reason. Show people a positive way to be. Mentor someone. Adopt. Foster. Something. Help these kids out. You see, these shaky kids who aren't learning anything, who aren't getting good values, who aren't getting good input, you and I are going to have to rely on them to take care of us here someday. And they're not going to be ready. So from a selfish perspective, we need to start putting something in these kids right now. Not next Sunday, right now. I'm looking for tons of feedback on this message. This is something so near and dear to my heart, and I'm telling you, I can't stress how much impact my grandfather had. And I say this without exaggeration. He saved me. Do you hear what I'm saying? My grandfather, not my dad, My grandfather saved me. You can save somebody today. Doesn't make any difference how old you are. You don't need money. Find somebody through your church who needs a mentor for their son or sons. You can do 2, you can do 3. Find somebody who you can take into Big Brothers. Find somebody where you can give back. If you had a wonderful life, you had a great growing up, your childhood was good, you owe us. Do you understand that? You have a debt to pay it forward. If you had a terrible childhood, you have a debt to pay it forward so that at least the people, the kids you touch, wouldn't have the same. You could be like my grandfather was to me for somebody else. You could go find your own Speedy and take care of them, help them, mentor them, guide them, befriend them, show them how men and women act. You could save a young girl from a lifetime of bad situations. Think of that. You could save a little girl from a lifetime of bad situations just by showing her another way. Maria's going to start the music, and we're going to close. And in closing, I want to say this. I am very, very concerned about the fact that half of our children don't have a positive male role model in their life. It's a big problem. It has systemic deep roots. It has racist overlays and tones to it. It's very complicated. And I'm not pretending to be smart enough to be able to figure it all out. But I do know this from my own life, that it all starts with love. And it starts with the premise that a blessing is not a blessing until it's spoken. So the love starts when you say, "Hey, Mary Lou, I love you. You're awesome. Hey, Joey, I love you, man. You're the best." That's all it takes. A little. Who can't love a kid? They may have all kinds of problems in their life, but I bet you when you dig down, they have a common core root, and that is no adult male providing guidance in their life. I want you to really think about what we talked about today. I want you to think about a blessing's not a blessing till it's spoken. Go give that young man a hug. Go give that young woman a hug. Tell them you're there for them. Be there. Go talk to their mother and say, "You know what? At church, Deacon T talked about this, and you know what? I got a little time on my hands. How can I help you? How can I help you with your children?" I think you'll find there's way more need than we can even imagine. But I also think you're going to find an unbelievable sense of accomplishment and a sense of doing good. Because after all, loving children who have no sin, they were just born in this crazy world, and their only sin in life is they got crazy parents or a crazy dad. Helping them is the greatest thing as adults we can do. Lord, I thank you for bringing us out here today. I thank you for this powerful message about the reestablishment of the family through the Father. Because you are our Father, Lord, and you are our Father then, and you're our Father now, and you'll be our Father tomorrow. Lord, let us be wise. Let us watch and look at how you have fathered us, and father our own, and those that we bring into our own, the same as you fathered us. If we're not doing right with our own families, give us the gumption and the guts to do right, to go back and make it right, to understand that it's never too late. It is never, ever too late. And that you, Lord, can stitch us back together in the blink of an eye. Give me forgiveness. Give all of us forgiveness for the parents that maybe weren't the best, but were just doing what they were doing. Give us forgiveness that if they'd have known better, we pray they'd have done better. Help me, Lord, to see the error of my ways and to apply discipline to myself, that I might go out in this world and with my mouth and with my actions let some children know I love you. We ask you to do this for us today, Lord, with all your might and all of your power, and through the blood of your Son, Jesus, who gives us eternal love and eternal life. And everybody in the sound of my voice shouted, Amen. Well, amen, everybody. I appreciate that you were here with me today. I'm going to have like a part B to this coming up. And until then, just remember this. These kids didn't do anything to anybody. A blessing's not a blessing till it's spoken. You got to say it. I love you. Just remember this. God's going to see you through. I'm going to pray for you. This is Modern Word Ministries. You can come as you are, but you'll never leave the same. I'll see you next week, 10 o'clock, modernwordministries.org. Everything's happening here. I love this place. I love y'all. Thank you so much for coming out. Until then, take care.